Welcome back to Tarot Urban Myths. If you're a fan of the creepy and the unsettling, you're in the right place. And hey, if you're enjoying the show, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give this episode a like. We are diving into a motif that is recurring in horror and folklore that I think just sends shivers down the spine. Hands in the mist.
It is unsettling, isn't it? A disembodied hand just emerging from the mist.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the mist itself is a veil that is concealing something unknown, something potentially dangerous. Then a hand reaches out and breaks through that veil. And it just triggers, I think, a very primal fear response in all of us.
It plays on our fear of the unseen, the lurking threat. Mist obscures our vision, it limits our perception, and our minds, they just fill in the gaps, often conjuring up the worst possible scenarios.
Yeah, it's not just the fear of what we can't see, it's also the vulnerability. The hand represents something beyond our control, a force reaching out to grasp us, to pull us into the unknown.
And that sense of helplessness, that is a key element in so many of these stories we're going to explore. There's a chilling Korean folktale about a shamanistic ritual where a hand emerges from the mist offering a blood. The conch shell, which is often a symbol of communication and connection, it becomes a tool of manipulation in this case. The hands hidden within the mist orchestrate the survivor's fate. They turn them against each other, playing on their fears and their desires.
It's like they're pawns in a game they don't even realize they're playing. And mist itself becomes this metaphor for the obscured reality, the unseen forces at work.
We also find the mist distorting reality in a story about a woman's encounter in a bar. She becomes captivated by a singer with an incredible voice, but then she realizes the singer has no face, just a void of darkness.
That's terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the mist is obscuring something very fundamental, something that should be there. And the lack of a face, the absence of identity, adds another layer of unsettling ambiguity.
When she tries to leave, the bar transforms into this disorienting maze, and hands emerge from the mist, preventing her escape. It's a classic example of how the mist can create this liminal space, a transitional zone where the boundaries between reality and nightmare blur.
Liminal space, that's a fascinating term. Can you kind of elaborate on that for our listeners?
Certainly. The concept of liminality, it was popularized by anthropologist Victor Turner, and it refers to a state of being in between. It's a threshold between one state and another. Think of rituals like coming-of-age ceremonies, or even something as simple as passing through a doorway.
So the mist visually embodies that betwixt and between state. It's not solid, it's not entirely empty, it's just a zone of uncertainty and transition. And the hands emerging from the mist represent the forces that guide us through these liminal experiences.
Precisely. Sometimes those forces are benevolent, sometimes they're malevolent, but they always represent a power that is beyond our control, a force that shapes our journey through these transitional spaces.
There's a modern story that explores this idea of hands as conduits for supernatural power. This story involves a witch's curse. Anyone who insults this particular witch is struck with this strange facial paralysis. It's described as a hand reaching out from an unseen force to deliver the curse.
The hand in this case becomes a symbol of the witch's power, an extension of her will. It's interesting to note that hands hold significant cultural symbolism in many societies. For example, the Hamsa hand in Middle Eastern and North African traditions is a protective symbol, while the laying on of hands in various spiritual practices is associated with healing and blessing.
So the hand in the witch's curse subverts that positive symbolism and turns it into a weapon. It also raises an interesting question about the power of words. The insult, the spoken negativity, seems to trigger the curse, almost as if the hand is acting on behalf of the witch's anger.
It's a cautionary tale reminding us that words have power and that negativity can have very tangible consequences. But perhaps it also suggests that the witch's power is not entirely external. Maybe it taps into something within the person who insults her, a darkness within themselves that the curse brings to the surface.
That ties into the idea of the shadow self, a concept explored by psychologist Carl Jung. It refers to the hidden, repressed aspects of our personalities, the parts of ourselves we just don't want to acknowledge.
Could the witch, in a way, represent those shadow selves? And the hand, her means of reaching out to punish us for our transgressions, both real and imagined. It's a chilling thought.
It is, and it brings us to another unsettling tale about a creepy neighbor who makes incredibly lifelike Halloween decorations.
Ah, yes. This one plays on our expectations, subverting the playful nature of Halloween decorations into something quite sinister.
A child goes missing on Halloween night, and it's implied that the child was taken by hands emerging from the mist surrounding the neighbor's display. It's as if the decorations themselves become a gateway to something dark and dangerous.
The mist, in this case, adds a layer of ambiguity. Are the hands real, or are they simply a figment of the witness's imaginations, fueled by fear and the unsettling atmosphere?
The story leaves that open to interpretation, which makes it all the more disturbing. It plays on our very primal fear of the unknown, the things that just lurk in the shadows, just beyond our perception.
That sense of ambiguity, that blurring of the lines between what's real and what's imagined, it's a key element in so many of these stories. It's what makes these hands in the mist stories so effective, I think, at tapping into our deepest fears.
Yeah, it's like the mist itself becomes this symbol of the unknown, the space where our rational minds just lose their grip and our primal instincts just completely take over.
Precisely. And sometimes those primal instincts lead us to confront not only external threats, but also the darkness within ourselves.
That's a fascinating idea.
Yeah.
We've talked about the shadow self a bit, but how exactly do these hands in the mist stories connect to our internal struggles? I'd like to hear more about that.
Okay, well, think about the story of the man who's haunted by this putrid smell. He searches his home, desperate to find the source, but it's only when he finally confronts his own reflection that he discovers this decaying tooth in his sink.
The tooth, a symbol of decay and this hidden pain. It becomes a physical manifestation of something that is rotting within him. But is it real? Or is it a hallucination? Maybe brought on by his own guilt and repressed trauma.
The story deliberately leaves that question unanswered. It forces us to consider the possibility that the most terrifying monsters are the ones that we create ourselves, the ones we harbor within our own minds.
It's a theme that we see echoed in the tale of the man who's tormented by this vision, of this horrifying creature with two faces, one that's laughing maniacally and the other consumed by sorrow. He tries to bury this memory, to move on with his life, but it resurfaces when his wife becomes pregnant with twins.
And as he watches the ultrasound, he sees those same contrasting expressions reflected in the faces of his unborn children. It's a chilling image, right? It suggests that our unresolved traumas are hidden fears. They can be passed down, even if unintentionally.
It's like a curse, but one that originates not from an external force, but from within the family lineage itself. The hands, in this case, could represent the invisible threads of inheritance, the unseen forces that shape our destinies.
But what if those hands offer not only a connection to the past, but also a path to the future, a way of navigating the liminal spaces of our lives?
We've touched on liminality earlier, but I'm curious to explore how it relates to these hands in the mist stories on a deeper level.
Okay, well, think about the story of the young boy who's led through this dark forest by a small, cold hand. He's both terrified and strangely compelled to follow. He's trusting that this unseen guide will lead him to his destination.
The forest, a classic symbol of the unknown. It becomes a liminal space in this story. It's a threshold between childhood and adulthood, innocence and experience.
And the hand, emerging from the mist, acts as this beckoning force. It's pulling the boy toward a confrontation with the darkness within himself. It's a necessary step in his journey toward maturity.
So it's a reminder that sometimes we need to surrender to the unknown, to trust the forces that guide us, even when they seem frightening or unsettling.
And that surrender can lead to unexpected transformations. Remember the story of the woman who feels the touch of her deceased cat. It's a haunting, but ultimately comforting experience. It suggests that the mist can act as a veil between the worlds of the living and the dead.
The hands, in this case, they're not a threat, but a symbol of connection. A reminder that even in death, the bonds of love can transcend boundaries.
It's a poignant example of how the same motif can evoke such a wide range of emotions, from terror to solace, depending on the context.
And it speaks to the enduring human fascination with the mysteries of life and death, with the things that lie beyond our comprehension.
Which brings us to a story that takes us from the intimate realm of personal loss to the vastness of the cosmos. A tale that confronts us with the ultimate liminal experience, the extinction of our species.
Oh, this is the one about the scientist who discovers these planet-devouring creatures through this powerful telescope, right?
Yes. He's initially thrilled by the discovery. He's eager to explore the wonders of the universe, but his excitement turns to horror as he witnesses these monstrous entities consuming entire solar systems, just leaving nothing but a cosmic wasteland in their wake.
Yeah, it's a classic tale of cosmic horror, where the vastness of space becomes this source of terror rather than wonder.
And the hands, in this case, could be seen as the hands of fate itself, shaping the destiny of galaxies, the rise and fall of civilizations.
The scientist tries to warn the authorities, but they refuse to listen. They just cling to their limited understanding of the universe. It's a familiar theme, right? The Cassandra figure who sees the truth but is dismissed as a madman.
It's a reminder that sometimes our own arrogance, our inability to embrace the unknown, can be our undoing.
So what can we take away from all of these chilling tales? What does this exploration of Hands in the Mist tell us about ourselves, about our place in the universe?
I think it reminds us that we are surrounded by mystery, by forces beyond our comprehension. It challenges us to confront our fears, both internal and external.
And it encourages us to embrace those liminal spaces, the thresholds of experience, where transformation and growth are possible, even if they come at a terrifying cost. So it seems that whether we're talking about personal demons or cosmic horrors, these hands in the mist, they represent a loss of control, right? It's a confrontation with the unknown that forces us to confront some uncomfortable truths about ourselves and the universe we inhabit.
It is a recurring theme in a lot of these stories. The idea that we are not entirely masters of our own destinies, that there are forces at work both within us and beyond our comprehension that can shape our lives in ways we can't always anticipate or control.
It's both terrifying and humbling at the same time.
Indeed, and it raises an interesting question. If we were faced with a truly existential threat, like those planet-devouring creatures in that last story, how would we react? Would we succumb to fear and despair? Or would we find the courage to face the inevitable with dignity and resilience?
That's a tough one. It's hard to answer hypothetically. I suppose it would depend on the individual, on their belief systems, their support networks, their overall outlook on life and death.
Perhaps. But I think these Hands in the Mist stories offer us a glimpse into the potential range of human responses to the unknown. Some characters, they cower in fear, others try to fight back, still others seek solace in acceptance, or even a twisted sense of humor.
It's a reminder that even when we're in the face of this overwhelming darkness, there is a spectrum of human experience.
Yeah.
A diversity of ways of coping with the terrifying and the inexplicable.
And that's ultimately what makes these stories so compelling. They don't offer easy answers or simplistic resolutions. They just leave us with questions, with unsettling possibilities, with a sense of wonder and unease that lingers long after the story is finished.
Yeah, it's like they're holding up a mirror to our own psyches. They force us to confront our own fears, our own beliefs about the nature of reality and the limits of our understanding.
And in doing so, they challenge us to find meaning and purpose in a world that often feels chaotic and unpredictable.
So as we conclude our journey into this chilling world of Hands in the Mist, what final thought would you leave our listeners with? What's the key takeaway, you think, from all these tales of terror and the unknown?
I would say this. Embrace the mystery. Don't shy away from the shadows, from the things that make you uncomfortable. Explore those liminal spaces, the thresholds of experience, where the boundaries between reality and imagination blur. For it is in those shadowy realms, in those unsettling encounters with the unknown, that we truly discover ourselves, that we learn to navigate the complexities of existence.
And perhaps, just perhaps, in confronting our fears and embracing the mysteries that surround us, we find a strange kind of beauty, a sense of awe and wonder that transcends the darkness.
Indeed. For the universe is a vast and wondrous place, full of both terror and beauty, and it is in those moments when we confront the unknown, when we feel the touch of those unseen hands, that we truly come alive.
And on that note, we'd like to thank you for joining us on this episode of Terror and Urban Myths. If you enjoyed our exploration of Hands in the Mist, be sure to subscribe to the show and give this episode a like. And until next time, keep your eyes open, your minds sharp, and remember, sometimes the scariest things are the ones we can't see.